Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be ranking each of the Premier League teams' transfer windows. Obviously on Monday we had the deadline for European transfers and Premier League transfers. Clubs can still negotiate with Championship clubs until the 16th of September, but as no more major signings are going to be made, I thought now would be a good time to look over each of the club's transfer windows. Obviously this transfer window was affected by COVID. It was the first transfer window ever to be affected by COVID. So as a result, we did see spending decreased by 160 million compared to last year, and selling was decreased by 455 million for Premier League clubs. So big changes there. In terms of how I'm ranking these teams, I'm just ranking it based off how good I think their players' signings have been for how good they are. I'll also be looking over each team's net spend as well as their total spend. Before we do get into today's video though, make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you're not already. We are pushing for 10k subscribers. We are less than 80 away, so all subscribers are much appreciated. Going to continue on with the live streams for watch longs and obviously more news as well. Also make sure to press that notification bell so you're notified the second I upload. Anyway, kickstarting the video, we're starting with 20th place. It's a pretty easy one. It's Burnley. Burnley have a net spend of 0 and have had a really poor transfer window, as that kind of suggests. They've not sold anyone really. They've let players go on free transfers due to being unable to extend their contracts. Like the likes of Joe Hart have left them. Jeff Hendrick has left them. And in order to replace them, they haven't spent anything. They are really going to struggle to survive. I originally had them to do fairly alright this year because every year they do alright. But they are really struggling. I think they've got like 13 fit senior players at the moment. It's going to be a real struggle for Sean Dyche's side. And we are going to have to see a Sean Dyche masterclass if they want to stay up. And in my opinion, literally survival for them would mean Sean Dyche deserves some real recognition because the job he's got in his hands this year is going to be very difficult. Moving on to 19th place though, we have West Ham United with a net spend of £9 million. Another season where West Ham fans have been left unhappy with the board. The board have not left them in a good place. They sold Grady Diangana to West Brom early in the window for I think £12 million. West Ham fans were not happy. He's an exciting talent and West Ham let him go for. The board tried to make the fans a bit happy by saying this money will be reinvested, and none of it has been. They have signed Souček, who's a decent signing, although I'm pretty confident he was on loan there last year anyway, so it's not really a new signing. And the board has just failed to deliver promises. Now Felipe Anderson has also left. He went to Porto. I don't know if it's permanent or on loan. That happened yesterday. And now they are left with 17 senior players for the remainder of the Premier League season. So they are in another spot bother. They've obviously some good form. They've absolutely smacked Leicester and Wolves. Two very good results. They're going 2 games against Tottenham, Man City and Liverpool. 3 very hard games. And I wouldn't be surprised to get smacked in all of them. They have got a serious challenge on their hands if they want to stay in the Premier League. Moving on to 18th, I have Fulham with a net spend of 23 million. Once again, they've actually invested quite a lot in terms of players. This time, nowhere near the same amount spent. Obviously, they spent 100 million last time they came to the Premier League. Relegated straight away. This time, a net spend of 23 million. But once again, they failed to invest in the right areas. Yes, they've sort of rehauled a squad, but none of it is Premier League experience. The likes of Areola, Tosin Adebayo, who I think is a good signing, but he's not ready for the Premier League. Well, he might be ready for the Premier League, but he's not got any experience in the Premier League, so he's not going to be able to guide them. Even their manager, Scott Parker, who I do rate, I think he's a decent manager, plays some decent football. He's not got any Premier League experience. The only time he's managed a Premier League club was Fulham, and he got them sent down. Obviously, didn't take over till March. They were pretty much down already, but there's no experience in that squad that makes me think they're going to stay up. And I think their goal this year is literally going to have to be to beat Derby's record points. Moving out the relegation zone for transfers, at number 17, I've got Sheffield United. Net spend wise, they have spent some money. They've spent 53 million, but much like Fulham, they've spent it in the wrong areas. Lowe and Bogle from Derby, 2 very promising fullbacks, but lack Premier League experience. Brewster, they have been completely ripped off by Liverpool for Brewster, a man who's only really had a year in senior football for Swansea last year. He had half a good season, no Premier League experience, and they've spent £25 million in him. In my opinion, completely investing in the wrong type of player. They've signed Ollie Burke, who did nothing at Nottingham Forest, Celtic or West Brom, so I don't know what they think is going to make it any different now he is at them. They've also signed Ramsdale to replace Dean Henderson, which in my opinion is a downgrade. Ramsdale's alright, but he did not look great for Bournemouth last season, and I'm not too sure he is what they need in goal, and he is definitely a downgrade on Dean Henderson. On the whole, I think Sheffield United are going to struggle this year. I think they will survive the drop, the transfer window hasn't helped them out too much. In 16th, I have Brighton with a net spend of 3.4 million. Brighton have actually started the season pretty well, only 3 points so far, but performances haven't been promising. An unlucky loss to Chelsea, a very unlucky loss to Man United. They absolutely wiped the floor with Newcastle and lost to Everton. So they've already got 3 very, very good sides out the way. And in all the games, they played pretty well. I'm not sure about Everton, but against Chelsea and United especially, they did play well, which means lack of spending probably isn't too concerning for Brighton fans. However, in terms of just a transfer perspective, it's not been a very good window for them. They've signed Adam Lallana and they've got a few other players like Joel Veltman, but there's nothing really to shout about. Lallana's a decent buy. You've got him on a free transfer, Premier League experience, which is what I think clubs like Fulham should have got. But on the whole, their squad looks decent. They'll probably get a decent mid-table finish this year, so not too much to be concerned about as a Brighton fan. Next up in 15th, we have got West Bromwich Albion, newly promoted side. They have a net spend of 26.3 million this year. They needed a striker this year. They really, really lack goals in that team. They didn't get one. Talks are there after Josh King or Callum Grant of Huddersfield. Obviously, Josh King is of Bournemouth. And this would probably bump up a few places, but so far, not enough has gone on in their transfer window. They've signed Diangan, Pereira and Kravinovic, all decent signings, had very good years from last year. But they were deals that don't really improve the squad because they were there last year. So I'm not really classing them as part of their transfer window. Although, if we are going to talk about them, they were very good deals on the cheap for the levels of performance they were producing last season. Ivanovic also does provide a bit of experience. Not too sure he's going to feature much. He's not really got the legs many more to produce in the Premier League. But like I said, good experience. It is helpful to have when you're a relegation fighting club. If they don't get a striker in before the deadline of the 16th of October, I would probably put them below Sheffield United. But so far, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and I'll put them in 15th place. Now moving on into 14th, we have got Southampton, managed by Ralph Hasenhüttl. They've had a net spend of 13.9 million. Obviously, Southampton in the past have had a very, very good reputation of finding cheap players and then selling them to normally Liverpool for much more. They signed Walker Peters on a permanent this year. He seems like a decent right back. They've also got Salisu from La Liga, who is very, very highly rated over there. They've also, on deadline day, they also added Theo Walcott on at loan, paying 50% of his wages, which could be an interesting one. I'm not too sure if it's going to work out, but you never know. Another player, like I said, with experience. He's got a little bit of pace about him. Not as much as he used to have, but he does still have that little bit of cut and pace. Over the window, they also lost Marco Lemino, who once upon a time was linked to Manchester City and he was a very, very highly rated player. So I think that may have been a bit of a loss. I think they should have probably gambled on him and tried to keep him at the club, but they didn't. And as a result, I've put them in 14th place for the transfer window. So if we're moving on into 13th place, I've got Crystal Palace with a net spend of £6 million. Palace did very, very little business, but that business that they did do was actually very solid. Eze, a very, very good player, had a very good season for QPR last year, gone for relatively cheap. Michy Batshuayi, as we've seen him at Chelsea, he's an alright player, not a great player, but a striker. They could have done with a striker, and that's what they've got. Obviously, he's got experience in the Premier League. He won Chelsea the league back in 2016 after scoring at the Hawthorns. And they've also got Nathan Ferguson of West Brom, who's a very, very decent centre-back. Not sure how he'll perform in the Premier League, but very little money was spent on him, so he's not really much of a risk at all. In 12th place, we have Leicester City, starting off the season in flying colours. Obviously, they lost to West Ham. Disappointment for them, but they have already smacked Man City 5-2, so that made them feel much better about themselves. Their net spend this year, £150,000. Not much business done for them. They've obviously lost Chilwell to Chelsea, who was an alright left back, so to get £50 million for him, I think is excellent business. In terms of the ins, they've gone and signed Under from, I think, Rome. He was once upon a time very highly rated. People tipped him to get to the top. I think this could be a very, very good signing for them. We could be seeing another player that's worth 60-odd million quid in a few years' time, and he's leaving to a top 6 Premier League club. They've also signed Timothy Castagne, who so far has looked very good from that right back role. Not sure where he'll feature when Ricardo Pereira comes back. Maybe he'll keep his place in the team. Probably one of them will shift over to left back where James Justin is playing right now. Yeah, so far Timothy Castagne has started very well. That's a good sign from Atlanta for around £25 million. Next, in 11th, I've got Arsenal, whose net spend is £64.5 million. I had them much, much lower for deadline day, and then they went and splashed cash. £45 million on Thomas Partey is a very, very good buy. Rodri's replacement for Atletico Madrid obviously was there before we signed Rodri, but since Rodri left, he has come into fruition and has played very well for Madrid. They activated his buy clause on deadline day. In my opinion, it's a very good signing. They've lacked a defensive midfielder, so on to protect that defence for a while. They've also signed Gabriel Magalhaes from Lille, who the likes of United and Napoli were after. Napoli were after him as their Koulibaly replacement, so they must have rated him fairly highly. He started the season okay. So if the likes of Partey and Gabriel. I think they have improved the squad. They've also got Willian, who's going to give them a bit more cover going forwards. Their attack looking very, very solid. Obviously, Ozil's on his way out. Obviously, one disappointment for them, they've let Martinez go. I think that was too cheap to Villa. He had a very, very good end to last season. And obviously, in my opinion, I think Arteta's right in saying Leonard's number one. I do think Leonard was a better goalkeeper than Martinez. But I think they probably could have got a little bit more for Martinez. Now, moving on again into the top 10. We are going with one of the Manchester clubs. It's Manchester United in 10th place with a net spend of £36.4 million. A lot of disappointment from United end. This transfer window, they came in with hope that they could take another step closer to getting that Premier League top back they have not had since the Fergie era. They signed Tellers at left back, a very decent left back at 27 years old, one of Europe's top rated left backs. He is a very decent signing, much improved on Luke Shaw. No centre back has come in though, an area they clearly need to be improving after that show they put on Sunday, losing 6-1 to Tottenham. Maguire, not good enough. I mean, he's probably good enough to be a second centre back, but £80 million as a main choice centre back, he's not it. They need a new centre back. Lindelof is also absolutely dreadful. They signed Cavani on a free transfer, £20 million I think in wages they are offering. In my opinion, that's a poor deal. But Cavani, he's not bad for backup. He will spend most of his time in the physio room, but not bad for a backup. They spent £40 million on an 18-year-old who's made 30 minutes of senior football, which again is baffling business when they weren't willing to pay an extra £20 million for Sancho. Van de Beek is probably their best signing. I rate Van de Beek highly. I think that's a very good piece of business. That sort of number 10 role, number 8 role, they've got very well sorted now with Pogba, Bruno and Van de Beek. But yeah, on the whole, the Glazers and Ed Woodward did not deliver what they promised, and United fans will be leaving very disappointed when you consider what they would have hoped for the likes of Sancho at the start of the window. In 9th place, we have the other Manchester club. It is the blue side of Manchester. It is Manchester City. City had a net spend of £76.5 million, one of the top net spenders in the league. However, we lacked signings in key areas this year. Some City fans probably say I've got us too high. Some people probably say I've got us too low. We addressed the centre-back issue very, very well. Ake is a very good backup to Laporte, left-sided centre-back. He started in a City shirt very well. And Diaz, although he was our third choice centre-back option, I do think he's a good signing. Played decently against Leeds. I'll be interested to see how he does. He can speak English. He looks like a solid player, 23 years old. I'm happy with that. I think we badly needed the left-back. I think we saw that. I think we would have got one had we sold Zinchenko. And I think the talks are we may still go in for Tagliafico in January. We addressed the Sané situation. He obviously left it to Bayern Munich, and we replaced him with Valencia man Ferran Torres. That was a great piece of business done very early on as well. Very happy with that signing. Ferran Torres has started all right, played very well against Burnley, a few dodgy games, but I think there's a future there. And the other issue we probably should have addressed was we failed to address the striker situation. We've been playing without a striker so far this season. Obviously, Guerra is back in training now, which is positive for City fans. But I would definitely think we need to sign a new striker, although I do think we will address that situation come next season. I also think we should let Garcia go on deadline day. A £17 million offer from Barcelona was rejected by City. I think that was poor. We're just going to let him go for a free transfer now, so I don't really get the benefit of it, considering we've already got enough centre-backs as it is. Moving on to 8th position, we have last year's Premier League champions who got smacked 7-2 at Villa Park last Sunday. We have Liverpool. Liverpool got a net spend of £48.2 million this year, with some very, very nice business. They've got a backup finally to that front three in Diego Jota, a very, very solid player with Premier League experience, who I'm sure will succeed. In that 7-2 loss at Villa, I actually thought he was one of the better players on the pitch. Thiago is a great signing. I hate to say it, but that is excellent business for Liverpool. £20 million for one of the best midfielders in the world. Obviously, he is aging a little bit, and he did only have a year left on his contract, but nevertheless, a great signing. They also got that backup left back, I think his name's Shimkas, don't know how to say his name. Never seen him play, so I can't judge him, but they did need cover for Robertson. And they also managed to rip Sheffield United off for Brewster. So on the whole, I think you've got to rate them pretty highly. And they addressed all the issues they needed to, and they probably would be higher, but they haven't made any signings other than Thiago that really boost their first team, which obviously is going to be difficult. But for that reason, they are going to stay in 8th place for me. In 7th place, we have Newcastle with a net spend of £35 million. Now, a couple of months ago, Newcastle fans would have been hoping for a much bigger transfer window. They also had hopes of the Saudi takeover to be taken over this summer. In the end, they've been stuck with Mike Ashley. But on the whole, you have to say it's been a pretty solid window for them. Signing Fraser and Wilson, I think both of them were on free transfers. Wilson may have been a fee. But they're very good buys. Wilson started very well. Fraser, once upon a time, wanted by Arsenal. He was creating some of the most chances in the Premier League for Bournemouth. He is a very good player. Didn't have a great year last year. But this year, I'm sure he could definitely offer Newcastle something. Obviously, that front three potentially of Fraser, Wilson, St Maximin, they've got Almiron as well. They're getting a decent little bit of a squad going there. Like I said, not quite the potential window they could have had, but on the whole, I think it's been a very solid window for Newcastle, and I'm pretty confident they'll stay up decently comfortably now. In 6th place, we have Wolves with a net spend of 7.6 million. Once again, they've heavily invested in the Portuguese market with their super agent. Semedo is a very, very decent right back. Obviously, even City were linked with him not too long ago. They got him as replacement with Doherty. Doherty obviously was very good for them. He's a good piece of business for Tottenham. But Semedo is an excellent, excellent right back choice for them to have. However, he's also a very, very solid player. Not yet proven, but young, and I'm sure he will develop into someone who Wolves can probably sell on for double the price they signed him for. And Silva, once again, is another one of them Portuguese players that is going to go far. He'll probably end up playing for like a Man United top team in 5 or so years' time. And £40 million is brave, but I'm confident he'll be worth more in a couple of years' time, like all the Wolves players are. Anyway, moving on into number 5, we're now in the top 5, and we have Leeds with a net spend of 85 million. I think it's the second highest net spend in the league. Leeds have invested heavily, and you've got to respect it. They are coming and they are here to stay in the Premier League after a 16-year absence. Rafinha is a very decent right winger, someone who's definitely going to help them. Obviously, Helder Costa's been playing on the right so far. He's done a decent job, but Rafinha no doubt will take his place after coming in from Rennes. They've improved on Kiki Casilla, who's had a shocker for them in the last few years. He's been part of the problem in Mezia, who's done decently so far. Obviously, they have conceded quite a lot of goals, conceding 8 goals already, 4 games in, but you wouldn't say the keeper's made any mistakes. So they'll be happy that they've got a new keeper in. Llorente and Koch are also decent buys. We're going to help them stabilise themselves in the Premier League, and I'm confident with the squad they've got after this transfer window, they'll be at least a mid-table side, if not higher. As we now move on into the top 4 for the transfer window, we have got Aston Villa, a team who stayed up by 1 point last year after a draw to West Ham. They've got a net spend of £85 million this year, and you've got to respect it. They've had a very, very good transfer window. Matty Cash from Nottingham Forest is a very, very good right back. I've rated Matty Cash for quite some time now. I've watched him at Forest quite a lot, and I have to say, Villa fans, you've got a decent player in your hands there at right back. I've also got Martinez from Arsenal, who I said earlier. He's a very, very solid keeper. Not quite the level of Leno, but we're talking near the level. Top sort of 7 or 8 keepers in the league, definitely. They've also gone and got Ross Barkley from Chelsea on loan, who on his day we know can be world class. Once upon a time, City fans wanted Barkley over Raheem Sterling. Obviously, the two players have had different career paths, but Barkley out on his day really can be incredible. Played very well against Liverpool in the debut as well, getting a goal to show for it. As well as this, they've gone and got Ollie Watkins, who started slowly, but a hat-trick against Liverpool will no doubt boost his confidence, and I'm sure we're going on to get 10 or 15 goals this season. As well as Traore, who has in the past played in the Premier League, not for quite some time, but obviously he came from Chelsea's academy before moving to Lyon, and now he is at Aston Villa. He should be a decent player as well. Let's move on into the top 3. In 3rd place, we have a team from North London. It is Tottenham Hotspur, who have in fact had a very, very good transfer window. This top 3, they've all had quality transfer windows. The signing of Bale on loan could be an interesting one. It could be a complete flop. And if I'm honest, I don't think he'll be that consistent. I think there'll be games where he's quite poor, he goes missing. However, he will get them at least 10 points. He will show up in the big moments, and he will win them games. He will win them 1-0 games for them. He will make a big difference. As I said earlier, Doherty is a very good right back, an improvement on Serge Aurier. Serge Aurier had a good game against United, not too challenged though, and I'm confident Doherty will be a replacement once he gets used to the system. Obviously, it's going to take a while because he's used to that 5 at the back. Reguilon is a good signing from Real Madrid. Obviously, a number of clubs wanted him. Good deal, £30 million. Only negative, obviously, is the buyback is relatively cheap. So if he succeeds, they will no doubt take him off Tottenham. Højbjerg is a very underrated signing from Southampton. Southampton obviously had to let him go. He wanted to leave. But for Tottenham, that is a very good signing, as well as Tanguy Ndombele, looking very, very solid so far this season, looking like a different version of himself. And also, they've gone and signed Vinicius on loan from Benfica. So if Kane does eventually get his inevitable injury, they will finally have a striker replacement for him. So yeah, Spurs are number 3 on the list for me. In 2nd place, I think some people may have thought I'd go first for these. I've got the team with a net spend of 212 million. It's Chelsea. A very good window for Chelsea, no doubt. The signings of Kai Havertz and Timo Werner are going to be very, very important in the future of Chelsea Football Club. Both of them have not started too well, but no doubt they will find their form and they will go on to be excellent players in the Premier League. They've also addressed an issue at left back with Chilwell, who I said earlier was pretty average, and it is 50 million is a bit too much, but he is definitely an improvement on what they had. They've gone and invested in the goalkeeper, which we all know they needed after Kepa's disastrous performances in a Chelsea shirt over the last few years. Thiago Silva is a very experienced centre-back, as we know. He's got a lot of quality. And although he's another short-term transfer, their defence needed short-term sorting out. The likes of tomorrow will, over time, grow into that position, so they've just got to fill that void for the time being. So yeah, I think Thiago Silva's a good sign in that respect. And we're yet to see what Ziyech has to offer in the Premier League. But as we saw in the Champions League in 2018-19, I'm sure it's going to be a lot of quality from him. Anyway, as you'll have figured out by the fact that they're the reigning team, number one for the transfer window, I've gone with Everton. Everton have had a net spend of 63 million and they've had an excellent window. Some people may be surprised it's so high, but I think the start of the season definitely has some sort of impact on why I've put them here. The midfield trio that they have acquired this summer has been nothing short of outstanding. Allen, Decore and James is a midfield with quality and perfect balance. Allen Decore doing a lot of running, good at tackling, and James Rodriguez is just there for show. What a player he has proven to be so far in the Premier League. Who knows if he'll flop towards middle of the season. At Bayern Munich, he complained about the weather, so maybe that is something that's going to cause a problem to him when we get into the cold winter months of England. And maybe as a result, we'll see his performance drop off. But so far, he's been incredible. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin has turned into a different kind of player this season under Ancelotti. They've also made the signing of Ben Godfrey, who could be a very solid centre-back in the future. Obviously, he didn't seem too good last year. However, he was in a dreadful Norwich side. So not too much can be judged off that. They've also gone and got a keeper to contest with Pickford. So either he'll come in or Pickford will hopefully improve his performances, which recently have been shocking. And it's beyond how he's still England keeper. But maybe this will help kick him up the backside and he will find himself into some form. With the signings they've made, I really wouldn't be surprised if they're a top 4 team coming the end of the season. And if Liverpool and City continuously slip up, I wouldn't even be surprised if they're involved in the title challenge. Anyway, that is all from me today. This is my Premier League rankings for this summer's transfer window. Leave in the comments down below who has had the best window in your opinion and who has had the worst. As I said at the start of the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and press that notification bell so that you are notified the second I upload. Anyway, that's all from me today, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.